Good afternoon, everybody. Today is June 15th, 2022, and I'm making this video to say first off, happy birthday to my dad in heaven. He would have been 75 today. And in honor of what would have been his 75th birthday, I wanted to share his story with everyone. It's a story that I've shared in the past with select few people, and I think it's a story of hope. It's a story of redemption. Story is not about me. It's my dad's story. I just want to tell it because I think that everybody who's going to watch this video that I could touch either knows someone or knows of someone who's battling drugs or alcohol abuse and they think it's hopeless. I can assure you it is not hopeless, and I'll explain. So I always thought it was hopeless myself. So I've never done drugs in my life, ever. And that includes pot, which I consider to be a drug. And I do drink, as you all know. You see my videos, and I'm not addicted to alcohol, and I don't drink every day. When I go out, I have a good time, and I like to have some scotch or sometimes vodka or what have you. But regardless of that, I've never touched a drug, and I think it was fear of addiction because I watched what it did to my life as a young boy, up until about my whole life, but up until I was a child. And I saw what it does to families, and I saw what it does to, a lot of people. So, my dad, so just when you think it's hopeless, and it's impossible for someone to get better and get away from this demon of drugs or alcohol, I can assure you, it's not. Now, you're going to need help. This person's going to need help. Whoever you know, or if it's you, or whoever it is, will need help. And they can only do it through the grace of God and by the strength of Jesus Christ. And I'll explain to you. So my dad was on drugs for 26 years, spent almost 5-6 of those years homeless, maybe longer, living in Thompson Square Park. And I was lucky enough that he redeemed himself. And I want to share that story of it. So my dad left my life when I was probably 10 or 11. Just got to be too much with my mom, and it was the rubber met the road, and he had to get out. If you know my dad, he wasn't a bad person, just had demons, like too many people do. I would see my dad when I was a kid on the street. He would avoid me because he was usually high. My good friends at the time, we were hanging out, walking around, walking from McCarran to the north side to Metropolitan to Graham Avenue. It's 11, 12, whatever, 13-year-olds. We were everywhere. I would see him. I would make like I didn't see him. My friends would make like they didn't see him. Everyone, we knew, where he was. He would avoid me because he didn't want to embarrass me in front of my friends because he was high. And then I stopped seeing him for many years, and I just thought, hey, well, one day I'm going to get a phone call, go identify my dad. The next time I see his face is going to be when they pull the sheet back. And I resided to that fact, and I accepted it. So here I am. You fast forward from my teenage years. I'm about 20, 21 years old. I'm working in the Roosevelt Hotel. Now I'm really, I don't need anybody, right? That's how I felt. And I always said, if I see my dad, I don't need him now. I'm going to tell him to go F himself. Who the hell needs you? I needed you when I was 10, 11, 12, 13, 8, whatever it may be. Now that I'm 20, 21, I have a job, I have a car, I have my own apartment. I was 20 years old. I was the restaurant manager at Roosevelt Hotel, the youngest restaurant manager in their history at that time. I didn't need you. And I was waiting one day when I'd run into him again if I didn't get that call in the middle of the night. And then here it was. My day came. I was in the Roosevelt Hotel. I was at the lobby bar doing some paperwork between breakfast and lunch. And who comes walking towards me? My dad. Clean, looked fine. And I didn't know. I was confused. I was like, it can't be. Who is this? Maybe it just looks like him. And I'm watching this man walk across the lobby bar. And I'm like, holy shit, my dad. Then he came up to me and he goes, hi. And I'll never forget it. All the bravado came out of me of the F you. And I said, hi. And he says, can we talk? So I said, all right, we could talk, but I just can't talk right now. Lunch is going to be starting in a few minutes, and I got to get inside. And so anyway, fast forward, We talked. We made a deal. He was going to explain his whole life to me from start to finish. And, on why he did what he did, or why he thought he did what he did, and where he was, and where he went, and where he's at. And I want to know everything. And he said, then maybe we could build our relationship back, because there were too many years missing to have a father-son relationship. And we did, and we built another good relationship again, and he was my dad again. And he was remarried. Wonderful woman. She's on Facebook. She's my friend. She's doing well. She lives in Minnesota now. And I'm sure she's going to see this. And maybe she can even add more color into it. But regardless, my dad was lucky that there was a gentleman by the name of John Bruderman who, through the power of God, was working on him. So John was a pastor at the Bowery Mission. He was a reformed drug addict, just like my dad, who decided to give his life to helping others. And he became a pastor, and he worked at the Bowery Mission, which is a wonderful place on Bowery Street. 2 big red doors there. Been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. Well, excuse me, maybe hundreds of years. 150 years or so, feeding homeless, helping people. So every day, John would go, every couple of days, he would go to Thompson Square Park, where my dad was living, in a box. And he would pray with him and say, come on, feed him some food. Say, come on in, let me bring in the program. And my dad didn't want no part of it. So one day my dad was so embarrassed of himself, because he came from a good, he had a mom, a dad, he had a brother who became a New York City policeman who since passed, my Uncle Carmine. Great man, had a family, lived a normal life, lived the American dream, and my father was screwed up on drugs. So it was nobody's fault but his own. The demons got him. But regardless, he was embarrassed by this. He said, I just couldn't take it no more, and he decided, he walked from Thompson Square Park to 6th Avenue and 14th Street. I believe it's the next to last stop on the L train. And he decided he was going to jump in front of the next train that came, and just end it. And as the train was coming, he was standing on the edge of the platform. He says he saw my face and Christ's face, and he just says, let me go talk to John. So he walks back to the Bowery Mission and knocks on the door. Ecstasy, Pastor John Bruderman, and John said, love to have you in. Of course, they brought him in, and unfortunately, they couldn't get him. They have to put you in a detox. So my dad's like, I'm not going back to detox. He was stubborn as well. And he was like, I'm not going back. I've been in and out of these things for 25 years. I'm not going to detox. Screw you. I'm leaving. Then they said, let's just stay in here, John. So let's stay in church a little bit. And they brought him in church. And he said, I'll make a deal with you. No rehab. No detox, excuse me. Because he had to go to detox like 3-4 days before he can get into the program. Because obviously physical withdrawals are, I can only imagine, when you're hooked on for 25 years on heroin and everything else, it can't be easy physically. So John said to him, let's stay in church, we'll talk and we'll pray all night, and let's see what happens. And I think in the back of John's mind, I never asked him this, but I think probably thinking that my dad would get so sick that he would just say, give me help. And he would take him to the detox and then pick him up and bring him back into the program. And lo and behold, they sat there praying all night and talking. And my father says it was a miracle he never had one withdrawal. Not one withdrawal. Nothing. No sweats, no headache, no nothing. Just a normal night of drinking coffee and water and praying and staying awake. And lo and behold, he wound up cleaning up, going through the program, and he decided that he wanted to give back or help others. And if you know my dad, he was a really good talker, friendly, had a good personality, was able to touch people. I've come to find out that he touched a lot of people. And that's why I wanted to share this video, so he can keep touching people. Because I think, and what I mean by touching them, I mean, so my dad then came to me after we rebuilt our relationship and everything was good and we saw each other. I would go down to his apartment on Jane Street in Manhattan with his new wife, and we go for dinner and lunch or whatever it may be. And I had a relationship with my father again. I was blessed I was able to, he didn't die in vain in my eyes. We we were friends again, and he was my dad. He came to me one day and he's like, Vin, we got to talk. Lo and behold, he's like, what you sow is what you reap. So I'm like, what does that mean back then? He's like, well, if you plant something in the spring, it's going to come up, right? At some point in the summer or the fall, you plant in the fall, it comes up in the spring, I should say. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, I spent almost a decade living on the street sharing needles. I now have AIDS. And back when he got it in the early 90s, unfortunately, you didn't get AIDS and take medicine and live. You got AIDS, you suffered, you died. The good news is he died happy. He had no fear of dying. He knew he was going to heaven. He had no fear of suffering. And he did suffer, unfortunately. But he wasn't afraid of it. He knew it was coming. And he accepted it. And his goal was to just spend as much time with me and his new wife at the time. And also help as many people before he left this earth. That's what he told me. And at his funeral, it was held in the Bowery Mission. The place was packed. It's not a big church, but it was packed with people. I don't know how many. And at the end, when people were walking out, strangers were coming up to me, hugging me. Your dad saved my life. Your dad saved my life. Your dad. It was kind of overwhelming. It was all men, and some of them had their families with them. Some of them were by themselves. And I say all men because it was a men's program. They didn't mix men and women in the programs back then. I'm not sure if they do now. I don't think so. But regardless, guys were coming up to me, hugging me. Pleasure to meet you. Your dad saved my life. Pleasure to meet you. Your dad saved. Pleasure to meet you. I mean, I was just overwhelmed with how many people my dad saved. And then it hit me later on. Well, now I know why my dad was saved. So he could help others. So I know he's in heaven. He's celebrating his 75th. This is not an easy story for me to share. I've only shared it with close friends and relatives, but I thought it's kind of something I've been wanting to share more publicly because I think it could help people. So if you think you have somebody who's hopeless, they're not. Anybody can be redeemed. You have to believe it. You're going to need help from Jesus. Can't do it on your own. If you have any questions, feel free to inbox me. If you needed me to talk to somebody and tell them this story of my dad, because if he could do it, here's what I can tell you. If my dad could clean up, and not only clean up, stay that way and help others, anybody could. Because he was as far gone as you can go. He was on the doorstep of jumping in front of a train, losing his soul forever. So I'm sharing this. I'm getting a little choked up now. I apologize. So I'm going to end it now with happy birthday in heaven, Dad. I hope this story helps somebody.